The morning sun rose over New Harmony like a golden coin in the purple sky. Captain G1 checked his mech's display screen one more time. The metal giant stood 20 feet tall, painted in dark green and brown colors. Steam came out from the joints as the machine moved forward. "Patrol report, Captain," said Sergeant Minho through the radio. His voice crackled inside Jiwan's helmet. "All clear on the east side. No sign of those crystal bugs." Jiwan smiled a little. The Vexai had not attacked for 3 weeks now. Maybe they had finally given up on this planet. His mech's heavy feet made deep marks in the soft dirt as he walked through the forest. "Keep your eyes open," Jiwan said to his team. "Those things are smart. They like to hide and wait." The forest was quiet except for the sound of 4 mechs walking. Birds flew away. When they heard the loud metal steps, Jiwan loved this planet. The trees were tall and green. The air was clean. It felt like home, even though Earth was very far away. Then Private Hyunwoo's voice came through the radio. "Captain, I see smoke ahead. Looks like a camp." Jiwan made his mech walk faster. Smoke could mean many things. Maybe other humans were in trouble. Maybe the Vexai had attacked someone. His heart beat faster as he moved through the trees. When they reached the top of a small hill, Jiwan stopped his mech. Below them was a camp, but not a human camp. Strange tents made of white cloth and silver rope covered a large area. People moved between the tents, but they were not people like him. "Are those ... Minho asked through the radio. Jiwan had heard stories about elves from the old scout reports. They were tall and thin with pointed ears. They had lived in space for thousands of years before humans ever left Earth, but no one had seen them for a long time. "I think so," Jiwan said. He made his mech's camera zoom in for a better look. The elves were beautiful. Their skin was pale like moonlight. Their hair was long and moved like silk in the wind. They wore clothes that looked like they were made from leaves and starlight, but something was wrong. Many of them had bandages. Some were lying on beds outside the tents. This was not a happy camp. "Captain," Hyunwoo said, "look at the edge of the camp." Jiwan turned his mech's head. At the far side of the camp, 3 large creatures made of blue crystal were attacking. They looked like giant bugs with 6 legs and sharp claws. Their bodies sparkled in the sunlight like broken glass. These were Vexai. The elves were fighting back, but their weapons seemed useless. Jiwan watched as an elf woman shot arrows at one of the creatures. The arrows were glowing with bright light, but when they hit the Vexai, the light disappeared. The creature did not even slow down. Another elf man swung a sword that burned with blue fire. The sword hit the Vexai's leg, but the fire went out like someone had poured water on it. The creature turned and knocked the man down with one of its claws, but then Jiwan saw her. A woman elf was standing in front of the biggest tent. She had long black hair and wore silver armor that looked like it was made from dragon scales. In her hands was a spear that glowed with white light. She moved like water, fast and smooth, as she fought against the largest Vexai. "Who is that?" Minho asked. Ji1 could not answer. He was too busy watching the elf woman fight. She jumped high in the air, spinning her spear like a wheel of light. She landed on the creature's back and tried to push her spear into its head. But just like the other weapons, the light went out when it touched the crystal skin. The Vexai threw her off its back. She rolled on the ground and got up quickly, but Jiwan could see she was hurt. Blood ran down her arm. "We have to help them." Hyunwoo said, "All units attack pattern Delta," Jiwan ordered. "Focus fire on the big one first." The 4 mechs ran down the hill. Their metal feet shook the ground like thunder. The elves looked up in fear when they saw the giant machines coming toward them. Jiwan's mech raised its arm. The plasma cannon on his shoulder started to glow with red light. Target locked. The computer said in his ear. He pulled the trigger. A beam of red energy shot out from his mech and hit the largest Vexai in the center of its body. The creature made a sound like breaking glass and fell backward. Blue crystal. Pieces flew everywhere. "Nice shot, Captain," Minho yelled as his mech fired at another Vexai. The plasma beam cut the creature in half like a hot knife through ice. In less than 2 minutes, all 3 Vexai were dead. Their broken crystal bodies lay scattered around the camp like blue snow. The elves stared at the mechs in silence. Some of them looked afraid, others looked angry. But the woman with the spear just looked tired. G1 made his mech kneel down and opened the cockpit. He climbed out and jumped to the ground. When the elves saw him, they gasped. He took off his helmet and walked slowly toward the woman with the spear. She was even more beautiful up close. Her eyes were like green fire. Her face was perfect like a statue, but there was sadness in her expression. "I am Captain G1 of the Human Colonial Defense Force," he said. He tried to speak slowly and clearly. "Are you hurt?" The woman looked at him for a long time. Then she spoke in a voice like music. "I am Neon, war leader of the Silver Moon clan. You helped us. Why?" "Because you needed help," Juwan said. "Those creatures are our enemy too." Neon looked at the broken Vexhai, then back at Juwan's mech. "Your metal giants, ... They hurt the crystal devourers. Our magic cannot touch them, but your weapons?" "Plasma technology," Juwan explained. "The energy disrupts their crystal structure." Other elves began to gather around them. Jiwan saw many young women among them. They all looked at his mech with wonder and fear. "How many of your people are here?" Jiwan asked. 237, Neon said. "All that remains of my world." Jiwan felt his heart become heavy. An entire planet of people reduced to less than 300 survivors. "The crystal devourers took everything," Neon continued. "Our cities, our forests, our magic. Nothing could stop them." Jiwan looked at his mech, then back at Neon. An idea was forming in his mind. It was crazy, but it might work. "What if I told you there was a way to fight back?" he said. "What if I could teach your people to use weapons like ours?" Neon's eyes became hard like emerald stones. "You think we are weak?" "No," Jiwan said quickly. "I think you are strong. But strength alone is not enough. You need the right tools." Neon was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke in a voice full of pride and pain. "We are not like you, human. We do not hide inside metal shells. We fight with honor, with our own hands, with the power of our ancestors." "And where did that honor get you?" Jiwan asked gently. The words hung in the air like smoke. Around them, the other elves began to whisper among themselves. Some sounded angry. Others sounded thoughtful. Neon's hand moved to the handle of her spear. For a moment, Jiwan thought she might attack him. But then her shoulders sagged and she looked very old and very tired. "What are you asking of us, Captain Jiwan?" Neon stared at Captain Jiwan for a long time. Around them, the other elves whispered in their musical language. Some sounded angry, others sounded afraid. "You want us to become like you?" Neon asked. Her voice was cold like winter wind. "2. Hide inside metal boxes and forget who we are." Jiwan shook his head. "Not become like us. Become stronger than you are now." An older elf woman stepped forward. Her hair was white like snow and her eyes were the color of storm clouds. She wore robes covered in silver symbols that seemed to move in the light. "I am Elder Solman," she said. Her voice carried the weight of many years. "Human, your machines have no soul. They have no connection to the life force that flows through all things. We cannot use such ... dead weapons." Behind Elder Solman, a young elf woman with bright eyes moved closer. Jiwan noticed she was looking at his mech with curiosity, not fear. "But Elder," the young woman said softly, "our soulful weapons did not save our world." Elder Solman turned to glare at her. "Heron, you forget yourself." Heron lowered her head, but Jiwan saw that she was still watching his mech from the corner of her eye. "May I show you something?" Jiwan asked. He made a signal with his hand, and Sergeant Menho's mech walked closer. The elves stepped back as the 20-foot-tall machine approached. But Jiwan noticed that Heron only took one small step back, while others ran much farther. "Menho, demonstrate the scanner function," Jiwan called up to his sergeant. The mech's head turned toward a group of trees at the edge of the camp. A blue light came from its eyes and swept across the forest. "Captain," Minho's voice came from speakers on the mech. "I'm reading 3 more Vexhai about half a mile east. They're moving toward the camp. The elves looked at each other with worry. Elder Soman raised her hands and closed her eyes. She spoke words in the old elven language, and a soft glow surrounded her fingers. After a moment, she opened her eyes and frowned. I sense nothing. The forest is quiet. Our machines can see things your magic cannot, Jiwan explained. They can look through walls, find enemies in the dark, and strike targets from very far away. Neon gripped her spear tighter. And you think this makes them better than our ways? I think it makes them different, Jiwan said. Different can be useful. A younger elf man stepped forward. He had the same proud look as Neon, but his armor was silver and blue instead of silver and white. I am Yorin, second of the war leader, he said. Your machines may be powerful, but they lack honor. Where is the skill in hiding behind metal while others fight? Before Jiwan could answer, alarms started beeping from all 4 mechs. Red lights flashed on their chest panels. Contact! Hyunwoo shouted from his mech. 3 Vex high coming fast. From the east. The elves immediately prepared for battle. Neon raised her spear, and white light began to flow along its blade. Yaren drew 2 curved swords that burned with blue fire. Other elves notched arrows that sparkled with starlight, but Heron did something different. Instead of preparing her own weapons, she ran to stand next to Jiwan. How did your machines know they were coming? She asked quickly. Motion sensors, heat detectors, and crystal resonance scanners, Jiwan explained as he ran toward his mech. The Vex High give off a specific energy signature. The 3 crystal creatures burst from the tree line. They were smaller than the ones from before, but they moved much faster. Their 6 legs carried them across the ground like blue lightning, Neon, and her warriors charged forward to meet them. Their weapons blazed with magical light as they attacked. But just like before, the light went out when it touched the crystal skin. The elves were brave, but their attacks did nothing. One of the Vex High knocked Yaren to the ground with its claws. Another grabbed an elf archer and lifted him into the air. The man screamed as the creature began to squeeze. Minho, Yunwoo, take. The 2 on the left, Jiwan ordered as he jumped into his mech's cockpit. I'll get the one with the prisoner. The 3 mechs fired at the same time. Red plasma beams shot across the camp. 2 Vex High fell immediately, their crystal bodies cracking like broken glass. The 3rd creature dropped the elf it was holding and tried to run, but Jiwan's second shot hit it in the back dot in 30 seconds. The fight was over. Neon stood in the middle of the battlefield, her spear still glowing with useless light. She looked at the broken crystal pieces, then at the mechs, then at her own weapon. We fought them for 3 years on our homeworld, she said quietly. 3 years of watching our people die while our magic did nothing, and you kill them in seconds. Jiwan climbed out of his mech and walked over to her. Your magic isn't useless. It just works differently. How can you say that? Yaren demanded. He was bleeding from a cut on his face. You saw what happened. Our weapons are worthless against these creatures. Heron stepped between them. Maybe our weapons are worthless, but what about us? Everyone turned to look at her. Elder Soman frowned. With disapproval. What do you mean, young one? Neon asked. Heron pointed at the mechs. These machines need pilots, right? Someone has to control them, make them move, tell them what to do. Jiwan nodded. That's right. The mech is just a tool. The pilot is what makes it effective. Then why not elven pilots? Heron asked. We're fast, we have good reflexes, we can see in the dark, and we understand battle in ways humans might not. Elder Soman made a sound of disgust. Foolish child. You would have us abandon our heritage for human metal? I would have us survive, Heron said firmly. What good is our heritage if we're all dead? Neon was quiet for a long time. She walked around one of the broken Vex High, studying its crystal body. Then she looked at Jiwan's mech, examining its weapons and armor. If we were to consider this, she said slowly, what would you require of us? Just a chance to try, Jiwan said. Let me bring some training mechs here. Let a few of your people test them. If it doesn't work, we'll leave you alone. And if it does work? Yaren asked. He sounded suspicious. Then maybe we can teach each other things, Jiwan said. You might learn our technology. We might learn your fighting techniques. Elder Soman shook her head. This is madness. We are elves, not humans. We do not need machines to fight our battles. Our battles are already lost, Heron said softly. Maybe it's time to try a different way. Neon looked around at her people. She saw the wounded, the tired, the hopeless. She saw young elves like Heron who wanted to fight back. She saw old elves like Soman who wanted to preserve their traditions. Finally, she looked at Jiwan. Bring your training machines, she said. But understand this, human. We are not your students. We are not your servants. If we do this, we do it as equals, Jiwan smiled. I wouldn't want it any other way. Elder Soman turned and walked away, her silver robes flowing behind her. Other older elves followed her, shaking their heads with disapproval, but Heron stepped closer to Jiwan, her eyes bright with excitement. When do we start? 3 days later, a large human transport ship landed in the field next to the elven camp. The ship was as big as a building and made the ground shake when it touched down. Many elves ran to hide in their tents, but Heron stood her ground and watched with wide eyes. Captain Jiwan walked down the ship's ramp with Lieutenant Yunwoo and Sergeant Minho. Behind them came 6 smaller mechs, each one only 12 feet tall instead of 20. These training mechs were painted bright blue and had fewer weapons than the war mechs. These are our training units, Jiwan explained to Neon. They're lighter, easier to control, and much safer for new pilots. Neon nodded, but she looked nervous. Behind her stood 5 young elf women who had volunteered for the training. Besides Heron, there was Yuna with her short red hair, Sioyan, who moved like a dancer, Jie with her serious dark eyes, Cheong, who was known for her perfect aim with a bow, and Sujin, who was Elder Summon's granddaughter. Elder Soman had been very angry when Sujin volunteered. She had spoken harsh words in the Elven language and refused to speak to her granddaughter for 2 days, but Sujin was determined to try. Before anyone gets in a mech, Yunwoo said, we need to understand how Elven minds work. Our machines connect directly to the pilot's nervous system. If Elven brains are different from human brains, we might need to change the interface. Minho opened a large metal box and pulled out several thin silver bands. These are neural scanners. They'll help us map your brain patterns. Heron stepped forward first. I'll try it. She placed the silver band around her forehead. Immediately, it began to glow with soft blue light. Numbers and symbols appeared on Minho's handheld computer. Interesting, Minho said, studying the data. Your neural activity is much faster than a human's. And there are energy patterns I've never seen before. That's our connection to magic, Heron explained. Every elf can feel the life force that flows through all living things. Can you control this energy? Yunwoo asked. Heron held out her hand. A small ball of white light appeared above her palm. It danced and flickered like a tiny star. Minho's computer started beeping rapidly. The scanners are going crazy. Whatever she's doing, it's creating massive energy readings. Jiwan studied the data over Minho's shoulder. An idea was forming in his mind. What if we don't fight the magic? He said, what if we use it? What do you mean? Neon asked. Human mech pilots use their brain signals to control the machines, Jiwan explained. But what if Elven pilots could use both brain signals and magical energy? The combination might make them much more effective. Minho nodded excitedly. We could modify the neural interface to accept magical input as well as neural input. It would be like having 2 control systems instead of 1. The other volunteer elves stepped forward to try the scanners. Each one showed the same pattern, faster neural activity and strong magical energy readings. This could work, Hyungwoo said. But we'll need to build completely new interfaces. While Minho worked on the technical problems, Jiwan began teaching the elves about basic mech operation. He showed them how the machines moved, how the weapons worked, and how the sensors functioned. The most important thing, he explained, is not to fight the mech. Don't try to force it to do what you want. Work with it like dancing with a partner, Yuna laughed. Elves know about dancing. Then you'll be natural pilots, Zhuan said with a smile. Heron raised her hand. Can we see inside one of the training mechs? Zhuan led the group to the nearest blue mech and opened its chest panel. Inside was a small cockpit with a comfortable seat surrounded by screens and controls. It looks so complicated, Jie said. It's simpler than it looks, Yunwu assured her. Most of the controls are automatic. The pilot just needs to think about what they want to do, and the mech does it. Qi-Ung studied the weapon controls. These targeting systems, they're like a bow, but with computers? Exactly, Zhuan said. You aim with your eyes, and the computer helps calculate distance, wind, and movement. I understand weapons, Qi-Ung said with confidence. By the end of the first day, Minho had finished building the first modified neural interface. It was a combination of human technology and Elven-made focusing crystals that could channel magical energy. Who wants to try it first? He asked. All the volunteers stepped forward at once. Naian had to choose. Heron, she decided. You started this. You should be first. Heron climbed into the training mech with help from Hyunwoo. The modified neural interface fit around her head like a silver crown. When Minho activated it, the interface glowed with both blue and white light. How does it feel? Hyuan asked. Through the radio. Strange, Heron's voice came back. I can feel the mech systems like they're part of my body, but I can also feel my magic flowing into them. Try moving the left arm, Hyunwoo instructed. The mech's left arm moved smoothly. Much more smoothly than it should have for a first-time pilot. Now try the right arm. The right arm moved just as well. Then Heron made both arms move at the same time, performing a complex gesture that looked like Elven sign language. Incredible, Minho breathed. She's controlling it like she's been piloting for years. It feels natural, Heron said. Like the mech wants to move the way I want it to move. Try walking, Zhuan suggested. Heron made the mech take a step forward. Then another. Then she started walking in a circle, the 12-foot machine moving with the grace of a dancer. The watching elves gasped in amazement. Even Elder Soman, who had been watching from a distance with disapproval, looked surprised. Now try the targeting system, Hyunwoo said. See that tree with the white mark on it? Try to lock onto it. Heron turned the mech's head toward the tree. Immediately, a red circle appeared on her display screen, centered perfectly on the white mark. Target locked, she said, but I didn't do anything. It just knew what I was looking at. The magical interface is reading your intentions, Minho explained. It's like the mech can feel what you want to do. Over the next few hours, all 6 volunteers tried the modified mechs. Each one adapted quickly, much faster than human pilots usually did. Yuna was the best at complex movements, making her mech perform spinning kicks and acrobatic maneuvers. Keo had perfect accuracy with the targeting systems. Jie showed amazing tactical awareness, always knowing where threats were coming from. Seoyan moved with incredible grace, making her mech dance like a giant ballerina. Even Sujin, the youngest, managed to walk and aim without any problems, but it was Heron who showed the most promise. By the end of the day, she was making her mech perform combat moves that impressed even Jiwon. You're ready for weapons training, he told her. Already? Neian asked. It's only been 1 day. She's a natural, Yunwoo said. I've never seen anyone adapt this quickly. That evening, as the sun set over New Harmony, the volunteers gathered around a campfire to share their experiences. They were all excited and talking at once. Did you feel how the mech seemed to know what you wanted? Yuna asked. It was like having a very smart horse, Chae-Young laughed. One that could shoot plasma cannons. Even Sujin was smiling, despite her grandmother's cold looks. I want to try the bigger mechs next. Naeon sat next to Jiwon, watching her people laugh and talk with more hope than they'd shown since leaving their homeworld. You were right, she said quietly. This might actually work. We're just getting started, Gowon replied. Wait until you see what they can do with real training. As the fire crackled between them, neither human nor elf noticed the small spy drone watching from the forest. The Vexai had learned that their enemies were working together, and they were not pleased. 2 weeks after the first successful tests, the training camp had changed completely. The elves had built wooden platforms around the training area where they could watch the mech pilots practice. Human engineers worked side by side with elven craftsmen, creating new equipment that combined technology and magic. Heron had become the star pupil. She could make her training mech move like a living creature, flowing from one combat position to another with perfect grace. Today she was sparring against Lieutenant Yunwu in his full-size war mech. "Remember," Jiwan called over the radio, "size isn't everything. Speed and skill can beat raw power." Heron's 12-foot training mech circled around Hyunwoo's 20-foot war machine. She moved fast, darting in to strike with her mech's practice sword, then jumping back before he could counterattack. "She's good," Minho said, watching from the control booth. "Look at those moves." No human pilot could make a mech move like that. The other elf volunteers were watching too. Yuna had developed her own fighting style based on elven martial arts, using spinning kicks and acrobatic jumps that would be impossible for a human pilot. Cheon had learned to use her mech's ranged weapons with deadly accuracy, hitting targets that other pilots couldn't even see, but it was Jie who had surprised everyone. The serious young elf had shown a gift for tactics and strategy. She could look at a battle situation and immediately know the best way to win. "Heron, watch your left side," Jie called out during the sparring match. "Hyunwoo is setting up for a flanking move." Heron spun her mech around just in time to block Hyunwoo's surprise attack. Their practice weapons met with a loud clang of metal. "How did you know I was going to do that?" Hyunwoo asked over the radio. "Jie sees everything," Heron laughed. "She's like a battle computer?" Watching from the platform, Neon felt a mixture of pride and worry. Her people were learning quickly, maybe too quickly. They were changing, becoming something new. Was that good or bad? "You look troubled," a voice said behind her. Neon turned to see Captain Jawan climbing up onto the platform. He had been working with Minho on new weapon designs all morning. "My people are becoming different," Neon said. "When we left our homeworld, we were traditional elves. Warriors who fought with blade and bow, who used magic as our ancestors did. Now," she gestured toward Heron, who was making her mech perform a complex dance-like combat routine. "Now there's something else," she finished. Jiwan sat down beside her on the wooden bench. "Is that necessarily bad?" "I don't know," Neon admitted. "Change has always been hard for elves. We prefer to keep things the way they've always been." "But keeping things the same didn't save your world," Jiwan pointed out gently. Na Yeon was quiet for a moment. "No, it didn't. Down in the training area, Yuna was practicing with a new weapon that Minho had designed. It was a plasma rifle that could be charged with magical energy, making it much more powerful than a standard human weapon. The magic doesn't just make it stronger, Minho explained to the watching crowd. It makes it smarter. The weapon can track moving targets and adjust for wind and distance automatically. Elder Soman, who had been watching from the back of the crowd, stepped forward. "You're saying that our magic is being used to improve human weapons?" "Not just improve them," Minho said. "Transform them into something completely new. Something that neither humans nor elves could have created alone." Soman looked thoughtful. Despite her early opposition to the training program, she had been watching every day. Neon suspected that the elder was more interested than she wanted to admit. "Could these hybrid weapons be used by traditional elven warriors?" Soman asked. "Without the metal machines?" "Absolutely," Minho said. "In fact, I've been working on some designs that might interest you." He led Soman over to a workbench covered with strange devices. There were swords with crystal cores that glowed with inner light, bows that could fire energy arrows, and armor that sparkled with protective enchantments. "These use the same principles as the mech interfaces," Minho explained. "They combine human technology with elven magic to create something better than either alone." Soman picked up one of the swords and examined it carefully. When she touched the crystal core, it began to glow with white light. "Interesting," she murmured. "The crystal focuses magical energy like a lens focuses light." "Exactly," Minho said. "And the human technology amplifies and directs that energy." While Soman studied the hybrid weapons, Ji-won was having his own revelation. He had been watching Heron practice, and he realized something important. "Neon," he said, "I'd like to ask you something." "What is it? Would you be willing to try piloting a mech yourself?" Neon looked surprised. "Me? But I'm the war leader. I command others. I don single quotes ... You don't what?" Ji-won asked. "You don't fight? You don't lead from the front?" That hit home. Neon had always been a warrior first and a leader second. She had earned her position by being the best fighter in her clan. "What kind of mech?" she asked. "I've had Minho working on something special," Ji-won said. "A command mech designed specifically for your leadership style." He led her to a covered area behind the workshop. When he pulled away the cloth, Neon gasped. The mech was 15 feet tall, larger than the training models but smaller than the full war mechs. It was painted silver and white, the colors of her clan. But what made it special were the modifications. Crystal veins ran through its armor, pulsing with soft light. Its spear-shaped weapon glowed with the same white energy as Nahon's traditional spear. "It's beautiful," Neon breathed. "It's more than that," Minho said, joining them. "This is the first true hybrid mech. It's designed to work with your specific magical abilities and fighting style." Neon walked around the mech, studying every detail. She could see human engineering in the joints and servos, but she could also see elven craftsmanship in the decorative armor and weapon design. "How does it work?" she asked. "The same way as the training mechs, but better," Ji-won explained. "The command interface lets you coordinate with other pilots. You can share tactical information, give orders, and even link your magical energy with theirs." "A network of warriors fighting as one," Neon said, understanding immediately. "LED. By you?" Ji-won confirmed. Neon looked at the mech for a long time. Then she looked at her people. Heron was still sparring with Hyunwoo, but now other young elves were cheering her on. They looked happy, hopeful, excited about the future. "All right," Neon said finally, "I'll try it." An hour later, Neon was sitting in the command mech's cockpit, the modified neural interface glowing around her head. The feeling was unlike anything she had ever experienced. She could sense not just her own mech, but all the others in the area. Heron's training mech felt eager and energetic. Yuna's felt graceful and fluid. Gigi's felt calm and analytical. "This is incredible," Neon said over the radio. "I can feel what all of you are feeling." "The command interface creates a tactical network," Ji-won explained. "You're all connected through a combination of radio communication and magical resonance." Neon made her mech stand up. The movement felt natural, like controlling her own body. She picked up the energy spear and activated it. White light flowed along its length, brighter and more focused than her traditional weapon had ever been. "Formation practice," she ordered. "Heron, take point. Yuna, left flank. Chaeyoung, provide cover." The 3 training mechs moved into position around her. Through the network, Neon could sense their readiness, their confidence, their loyalty. "Now advance," she commanded. The 4 mechs moved forward together, perfectly coordinated. They looked like a dance troupe performing a complex routine, each pilot knowing exactly where the others would be, from the watching platform. Elder Soman observed with growing amazement. This wasn't just human technology or elven magic. This was something entirely new, something that honored both traditions while creating something greater. "Perhaps," she said quietly to herself, "change is not always a bad thing." The training session was interrupted by alarms from the human base. Red lights flashed on all the mechs as urgent messages came through the radio. "All units, return to base immediately," the voice of the human commander crackled through the speakers. "Long-range sensors have detected a large Vexi force approaching the planet. Estimated arrival time, 6 hours." Neon felt her heart race. The real test was coming. Are we ready for this? Heron asked over the network. Neon looked at her small force of hybrid mechs and hybrid weapons. Human technology enhanced with Elven magic, traditional warriors adapting to new ways. Two species learning to fight as one. Yes, she said with growing confidence. I think we are. The Vex-High invasion fleet arrived at dawn like a blue storm across the sky. Hundreds of crystal ships descended through the atmosphere, their surfaces reflecting the morning light like broken glass. On the ground, thousands of crystal warriors poured out of landing pods, each one the size of a small building. Captain G1 stood in the command center, watching the tactical displays with growing worry. The human colony only had 50 war mechs and 200 soldiers. The Vex-High had brought enough forces to conquer an entire planet. Sir, Lieutenant Hyunwoo reported, the enemy is using new tactics. They're not attacking in straight lines, like before. They're spreading out, trying to surround our positions. They've learned from our previous battles, Jawan realized. They know our plasma weapons are effective, so they're not giving us clear targets. Through the command center's windows, he could see the elven hybrid mechs taking positions around the base. Neon silver and white command mech stood at the center, coordinating with her pilots through their magical network. Captain, Neon's voice came over the radio. My scouts report Vex-High forces moving through the northern forest. They're trying to attack the civilian shelters. Iwan felt his stomach drop. The civilian shelters held 3,000 human colonists and 200 elves, if the Vex-High reached them. All units, defensive formation around the shelters, he ordered. We cannot let them through. The battle began with a roar of plasma fire and the crash of crystal against metal. Human war mechs formed firing lines, their heavy weapons cutting down Vex-High warriors as they charged across the open ground. But there were too many enemies and they kept coming. We're running low on ammunition, Sergeant Minho reported from his mech. These things just won't stop. That's when Neon and her hybrid pilots showed what they could really do. Formation Delta, Neon commanded through the magical network. Heron Yuna, with me. Cheyung Jia provide covering fire. The three mechs moved like dancers through the battlefield. Neon's command mech led the charge, her energy spear cutting through Vex-High armor like it was made of paper. But it wasn't just the weapon that made her effective. It was the way she moved, flowing from one target to the next with perfect elven grace. Heron followed close behind, her smaller mech darting between the legs of larger Vex-High warriors and striking at their weak points. She moved faster than any human pilot could. Her elven reflexes enhanced by the mech systems, Yuna attacked from the side, her mech performing spinning kicks that sent crystal warriors flying through the air. She made combat look like art, each movement beautiful and deadly at the same time. Incredible, Hyunwoo breathed, watching from his own mech. They're cutting through the enemy like they're not even there. But the real surprise came from Cheyong. The young elf had modified her mech's weapons with Elder Summon's help, adding focusing crystals that turned ordinary plasma bolts into guided energy arrows. She was hitting targets from impossible distances, her shots curving around obstacles to find their marks. How is she doing that? Minho asked. Elven archery skills combined with human targeting computers, Yuan explained. She's not just aiming with her eyes. She's using magic to guide the shots. The hybrid tactics were working, but the Vex-High had surprises of their own. As the battle continued, larger crystal creatures began to emerge from the landing ships. These were the size of buildings, with thick armor that even plasma cannons couldn't penetrate. New contacts, Hyunwoo reported. 3 super heavy Vex-High moving toward our position. Our weapons aren't doing anything to them. Jiwon watched in horror as one of the giant creatures walked straight through a plasma barrage without slowing down. It reached a human mech and grabbed it with one massive claw, crushing the metal like paper. Fall back, he ordered. All units retreat to secondary positions. But Neon had a different idea. Jiwon, she called over the radio, what if we combined our firepower? Linked all our weapons together through the magical network. Is that possible? Jawan asked. Elder Soman thinks so, Neon replied. She's been working on something she calls a harmony formation. All the hybrid pilots link their magical energy together and focus it through one weapon. That sounds dangerous, Yunwu warned. So is losing, Heron pointed out. Juwan looked at the advancing giant Vexhai. In minutes, they would reach the civilian shelters. He had to try something. Do it, he ordered. Nion's command mech raised its energy spear high in the air. All hybrid pilots, link to my position. Channel your energy through the network. 1. By 1, the elven pilots connected their magical energy to Nahon's spear. White light began to flow from their mechs toward her weapon, creating streams of power that looked like lightning in reverse. More power, Nahon called. I need more. Elder. Summon's voice came over the radio from the command center. All elves who can hear this, focus your energy on the war leader. Give her everything you have. Across the battlefield, elves who were not piloting mechs began to channel their magical energy toward Neon. Even the civilians in the shelters joined in, their combined power flowing through the air like a river of light. Naon's spear grew brighter and brighter until it was like holding a piece of the sun. The energy was so intense that it made the air around her mech shimmer like water. Target the largest Vexhai, Jawan instructed. Hit its center mass. Nayan aimed her spear at the giant crystal creature and released all the gathered energy at once. The beam of light that shot from her weapon was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. It was pure magical energy focused through human technology. Guided by elven skill, empowered by the combined will of two species fighting as one. The beam hit the giant Vexhai and went straight through it. The creature stood still for a moment as if confused. Then cracks of light began to spread across its crystal body. A second later it exploded in a shower of blue fragments. Target the second one, Neon ordered, already gathering energy for. Another shot, the second giant fell just like the first. Then the third, with their super-heavy units destroyed, the remaining Vexhai began to retreat. They had never faced combined human-elven tactics before, and they didn't know how to deal with them. They're falling back to their ships, Yunwu reported. Should we pursue? Let them go, Jawan decided. We've proven our point. As the crystal ships lifted off and disappeared into space, both humans and elves cheered in victory. But the real celebration came when they realized what they had accomplished together. We did it, Harren said over the radio, her voice filled with amazement. We actually did it. We fought as one people, Neon added. Human and elf, technology and magic, all working together. Elder Summon's voice came through the speakers, and for the first time since the training began she sounded happy. Perhaps, she said, this is how it was always meant to be. Standing in the command center, Jiwan watched the hybrid mechs returning to base. The elven pilots were laughing and talking excitedly, their fear replaced by confidence and hope. But more than that, he could see human and elven engineers already working together to repair damaged equipment. Soldiers and warriors sharing stories of the battle. Children of both species playing together. While their parents planned for the future, this was bigger than just winning a battle. This was the beginning of something entirely new, something that neither species could have achieved alone. 6 months after the Great Battle, New Harmony looked like a completely different world. The human colony had grown into a proper city, with tall buildings made from both steel and enchanted crystal. Elven tree houses grew alongside human apartments, connected by bridges that sparkled with magical light. Captain Juwan, now promoted to colonel, stood on the balcony of the new Joint Military Academy. Below him, human and elven cadets trained together in the courtyard. Some practiced with hybrid mechs, others with magical weapons enhanced by human technology. It's hard to believe how much has changed, Lieutenant Yunwu said, joining him on the balcony. Yunwu had been promoted too and was now the Academy's chief instructor. Change was necessary, Jawan replied. Both our species were facing extinction. From the Vexhai, together we found a way to survive. In the courtyard below, Harren was teaching a class of new pilots. She had become the Academy's first elven instructor, developing training methods that worked for both human and elven students. Her hybrid mech stood nearby, its crystal-enhanced armor gleaming in the sunlight. "The key to piloting," Harren explained to her mixed class of human and elven cadets, "is not to control the mech, but to become one with it. Let your mind flow into the machine like water flowing into a cup." A young human cadet raised his hand. "But Instructor Harren, humans don't have magic like elves do." "How can we flow our minds into anything?" Harren smiled. "Magic is just one way to connect with the world around you. Humans have their own gifts. Your determination, your creativity, your ability to adapt, these are also forms of power." She gestured to an elven cadet who was struggling with her mech's computer systems. "And elves can learn from human logic and precision. We all have something to teach each other." Watching from the balcony, Jiwan felt proud of how far they had all come. The academy was graduating new pilots every month, all trained in the hybrid fighting style that combined the best of both species. "Colonel," a voice called from behind him. Jiwan turned to see Neiyan approaching. She wore the uniform of an academy general now, silver and blue with both human rank insignia and elven honor marks. Her hair was shorter than before, more practical for wearing a mech helmet, but she had lost none of her natural grace. "The fleet is ready," she reported. 50 ships, each one carrying hybrid mechs and mixed crews. We can leave for the elven homeworld whenever you give the order." Jiwan nodded. The liberation of the elven homeworld had been planned for months. Intelligence reports suggested that the Vexhai occupation force was much smaller than the invasion fleet they had defeated. With their new tactics and weapons, the combined human-elf force should be able to retake the planet. "Are your people ready to go home?" Jiwan asked. Neiyan looked thoughtful. "That's a complicated question. The planet we left is not the same as the planet we're going back to, and we're not the same people who left it." She gestured toward the courtyard where human and elven instructors were working side by side. "This place has become home too. Some of my people want to stay here, to continue building this new society we've created. And others want to reclaim their ancestral lands," Jiwan guessed. Double quotes. "Yes, but even they understand that we can't go backward. We can't pretend that none of this happened. The hybrid technology, the mixed crews, the new fighting techniques, these are part of who we are now." A cheer rose from the courtyard below. Jiwan looked down to see a young elf successfully pilot a training mech for the first time. Her classmates, both human and elven, were congratulating her with equal enthusiasm. "Sergeant Minho has finished the new production facility," Hyunwoo reported. "We can now build 50 hybrid mechs per month. The designs keep getting better as our engineers learn more about combining technology and magic." "Speaking of Sergeant Minho," Neon said with a smile, "he's asked Elder Solman to marry him." Jiwan looked surprised. "Really? I didn't know they were interested in each other." "It started when they were working on weapon designs together," Neon explained. "They discovered they both love solving complex problems." Romance followed. "Naturally, what did she say?" "She said yes, but only if he learns to speak proper Elven," Neon laughed. "His pronunciation is terrible, but he's trying very hard." The conversation was interrupted by alarms from the command center. All 3 officers immediately headed inside, their training taking over. "Report," Jiwan ordered as they entered the communications room. "Long-range sensors have detected a massive Vexhai fleet," the duty officer announced. "Much larger than anything we've seen before. They're heading straight for our position." Jiwan studied the tactical display. The enemy fleet was enormous, easily 10 times larger than the force they had defeated before. "How long until they arrive?" Neon asked. 18 hours, General." Jiwan felt his heart sink. Even with all their improvements, they couldn't possibly fight a force that large. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're receiving transmissions from across the sector. Human colonies, elven refugee settlements, even some independent traders. They're all asking if they can help." "Help how?" Yunwoo asked. "They want to send ships and pilots to join our defense fleet. Word has spread about our hybrid technology and combined tactics. Everyone wants to learn how we defeated the Vexhai. Ji-Wan looked at the communications display. Dozens of messages were coming in from across known space. Humans who had heard about the Elven Alliance. Elves who had learned about the successful hybrid program. Even other alien species who were tired of running from the Vexhai. They all want to fight together, Neon said with wonder. Humans, elves, and others all united against a common enemy. The Academy has become more than just a training facility, Yunwu realized. It's become a symbol. Proof that different species can work together instead of fighting each other. Over the next 18 hours, New Harmony became the center of the largest fleet ever assembled. Ships arrived from every direction, bringing pilots eager to learn hybrid tactics and weapons. Enhanced with human-elven technology. There were human battleships with elven-enhanced shields. Elven cruisers with human weapon systems. Even alien vessels that had been modified to use the new hybrid technology. Most impressive of all were the pilots. Veterans from a dozen different species, all trained in the Academy's combined fighting methods. They spoke different languages and came from different worlds, but they all understood the basic principle. Working together made them stronger than fighting alone. When the Vexhai fleet finally arrived, they found something they had never encountered before. Not just one species fighting desperately for survival, but an alliance of different peoples fighting together by choice. The battle was fierce but brief. The Vexhai had expected to face the same divided, scattered resistance they had always encountered. Instead, they found coordinated tactics, hybrid technology, and a unity of purpose that they couldn't understand or defeat. For the first time in recorded history, a Vexhai fleet retreated without accomplishing its mission, standing on the command deck of the flagship. Ji-Wan watched the crystal ships disappear into hyperspace. Around him, officers from 6 different species worked together to coordinate the pursuit. They'll be back, Neon said, joining him at the observation window. Yes, Ji-Wan agreed. But when they return, they'll find us even more ready for them. He looked around the bridge at the mixed crew. Humans working alongside elves, both trained in hybrid combat techniques that enhanced their natural abilities. Other species learning and contributing their own knowledge to the growing alliance. This isn't just about defeating the Vexhai anymore, he realized. We're building something new. A way for different species to work together instead of competing or fighting, Neon nodded. The Academy will need to expand. We'll need branches on different worlds, training centers for all our new allies. And we'll need new instructors, Hyunwoo added. Pilots from every species, all teaching their unique skills to the others. Through the observation window, they could see the Academy on the planet below. Even from space, it was clearly growing. New buildings were being constructed every day. Landing pads for alien ships, workshops for hybrid technology, dormitories for cadets from across the galaxy. You know what I think? Ji-Wan said finally. What? Neon asked. I think we accidentally started something much bigger than a military alliance. We've started a new way of thinking about what different species can accomplish together. Neon smiled. Maybe that's exactly what the galaxy needed. On the planet. Below, in the Academy's main hall, a ceremony was taking place. Sergeant Minho and Elder Soman were getting married, their union symbolic of everything the Academy represented. Human technology and elven wisdom joining together to create something greater than either could achieve alone. The wedding guests included people from 10 different worlds and 7 different species. They all understood that they were witnessing more than just a marriage. They were seeing the birth of a new tradition, a tradition where differences were celebrated, not feared, where cooperation was valued over competition, where the question wasn't how can we defeat our enemies, but how can we work together to build something better?